Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by PagerDuty, serving as the hub of your operations, aggregating all of your infrastructure, monitoring tools, and alerting the right people and teams at the right time. Sign up today at pagerduty.com/twist to get a free t-shirt with your first alert. And by Citrix GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. Visit GoToMeeting.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. Today on the program, Des Traynor. This is somebody who you probably have never heard of. He is a genius at running product for companies and figuring out what features you should add to your product and which features you should take out and why you're building your product. He is the product whisperer. And I had an event called Scale. 54 people spoke to 900 founders, and at that event, I asked those founders to rank the speakers, and Des was number one. Therefore, I invited Des to come back and speak at my incubator to my 7 companies, and they gave him a resounding applause at the end. They gave him 2 sets of applauses. It was amazing. You're going to love this episode. You're going to learn a lot about product. Stay tuned.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Maybe just I'll go into full talk mode in a second, but just I guess some background about me is the accent you're hearing is obviously I'm Irish. I'm not from San Francisco. We had our background of the team behind Intercom is we had a consultancy where we built web products for startups for quite a while, learned a lot of lessons on other people's dimes, and then we had our own product, which we sold, now part of Rackspace, took the proceeds from that and started Intercom. We're Intercom, we did a Series B last year of 23 million. Pretty compelling product for everyone who's here tonight because we sell to internet businesses, and by all means check it out. But now I'm going to talk about product strategy, and this is like lessons learned from working with, I guess, probably working with or advising or helping probably about 100 startups at this point through consulting and through my role in Intercom and all that sort of stuff. So, could everyone see the screen okay? Yeah, cool. The slides will be available from this. It's email des-slides@intercom.io. So, thanks very much. I'm Des Traynor. So, it's a crazy time to be building products right now. Literally every single normal human activity is being replaced by software. I really like this image because it kind of sums up how the modern day desk has just been, every single element has been replaced. So, in the old days when you used to look out the window, today you just look at shit on YouTube. In the old days, you used to, ring your friends with a phone that had a handset. Your children today are never going to see such a device. You used to have things like a Rolodex, now you have LinkedIn. Another interesting way to think about this is, here's what the world looked like when I was a teenager, which isn't that long ago, maybe like 15 years or so. If you were playing music, you were, playing music. And if you were like, contacting people, you were contacting people. And if you were like making music, every activity looked different. Here's what they all look like today. That is basically what's happened with the world. Every single thing is just us. Or more correctly, it's probably something more like this, but it's effectively the same thing. This is a roundabout way of saying what Mark Andreessen said 3 years ago, which is that software is eating the world. And as people, as founders here today, you guys get to pick what's on the menu. Now, a lot of this talks to me about product strategy and product management and the kind of the blurred role that sits between them. And one of the first questions people are asking these days, my niece asked me this very special question, which was, she said, Des, where do products come from? And I was like, what? Because no one asks that about music, right? No one's like, hey, where did music come from? It's like, well, with music, like, if it's like, no one asks what is U2, they're like, oh, I've seen the dude with the shades and the guitarist, and, it all makes sense. But everyone has all these phones, and on those phones, it's all these apps, and people legitimately want to know what the hell caused them to get there. And that's basically a lot of what we'll be talking about. This talk's broken down to 4 pieces: managing a product, managing scope, managing feature creep, and delivering magic. So starting with product management, which is the number one challenge you'll all have. The reason it's a challenge, for what it's worth, is that it's where you are now. Most of you is in a very special place. You have no customers, or you have very few customers. You have no investors. You have no hundreds of employees. You have no journalists writing about you and what your product has to do next. You have no analysts having all these opinions. All of these things will come, and they will all want to dictate exactly what you should do. And how you ebb and flow and get through that is what's called product management, basically. A good question to ask, like my niece said, is like, why was this product created, or where does it come from, or whatever. There's 5 reasons why a product exists in the world, right? Either you have a product visionary, somebody who knows exactly what needs to be created and sees it through, the Steve Jobs type figure, if you like. You have somebody who's customer focused. That is, somebody who has an incredible empathy for the pains that other people go through in life and want to build software to solve what they're dealing with. You have the auteur, and an auteur blends art and business in such a way. Their goal is not to be a multi-billion-dollar business. Their goal is simply to create things that other people will find valuable. But first of all, they're delivering their own passion first. You have people who scratch itches. These are people who like, we have this problem today, so I built software to solve this problem today. It just so happened, if you're like Stuart Butterfield, that it also happened to be $1 billion business. But it started off building a product today. Lots of great products have come out of that. Yammer was actually the original sort of internet communications tool for a genealogy product. There are numerous examples. Basecamp was originally a project management tool for a consultancy. There are like, no shortages. And lastly, probably the most common one you'll see a lot of is pattern. There are people who follow patterns. And let's just talk about pattern for a sec. So you observe a pattern in product and apply it to a new domain, and that often produces lots of cash. What happens here is, like, every know what this icon is? Yeah, Tinder. I think it's Tinder. But okay. That is Tinder, genuinely. I don't use Tinder, but you'll have to trust me. I Googled Tinder logo. There is now Tinder for things like connecting professionals with other professionals, or you can connect. There's Tinder for jobs. There's even Tinder for things like, what is this? Oh yeah, for professional networkers, for creatives. There's Tinder for people who have similar dresses to you that you can swap dresses. There's even Tinder for dogs. You can connect with other fluffy singles in your area. These are all like the Tinder for category, right? And that is pattern recognition. And you can see all these under product hunt. You can see like there's Tinder for X. There's Birchbox for X. So you guys know what Birchbox is. It's like Netflix for cabbage. No, it's Birchbox basically delivers fresh stuff on a periodic basis for a certain fee. There's Airbnb for X, which is like, tapping into this what they call the sharing economy, I guess. And of course, there's Uber for X. And how does this play out? Well, what actually plays out here is that if you're building an Uber for X, you're thinking, well, Uber's got a $41 billion market cap, or you wouldn't call it market cap yet, but its valuation's $41 billion. That's not a small amount of cash. So you kind of think, well, what is Uber? Well, I realize this text is small, so I'll read it. What is Uber? Well, a car is an expensive device, rarely used by city living folk, that delivers no value when it's not in use. That's what a car is. Uber replaces the need for a car with a car on demand delivered by a professional company that you can trust. So if you want to do the Uber for X category, you have to ask, what else is expensive, rarely used, that delivers no value when it's out of use? And out of all these things, which of these could a professional company deliver? And just for fun, does anyone shout an answer? What's expensive, rarely used, and delivers no value when you're not using it? Anyone?
Prom dress.
Prom dress. Great example. So, and what does the guy wear when the girl's wearing a prom dress? Tuxedo. Brilliant. So that is really random. This is the first time in all times doing this talk that that's happened. But tuxedos, right? So you're thinking, there's surely not Uber for tuxedos. Wrong. There's actually a couple of Ubers for tuxedos. One of them is called Black Tux. This is like Uber, but for suits when you need a suit straight away. And they're tapping into the idea that no one needs to actually own a tux. They just need one on demand. It has all these other benefits. It doesn't get old. It'll always fit you because it's not yours, But like, there's a million examples of this. There's Uber for lawn mowing. There's even Uber for Uber, right? This is like, these guys launched at TechCrunch Disrupt. This is a tool for building Uber for other things. So they've actually gone one level up the metasphere, right? But anyway, all that is, the only reason I'm saying all of this is to say that like, there is no one true way to manage products. You manage a product based on the principles that caused you to create it in the first place. If your passion was, for example, to encourage people to get off the couch and go and attend live performances and stuff like that, you have to chase that passion. if your vision really was, hey, a lot of people are making money off Groupon, we're going to do Groupon for this, then you're pattern matching. So you manage your product that way. So,
okay, everybody, I want to tell you about a very cool startup that we use here at Inside.com and that handles one of the most important issues that you will deal with when your company hits scale. It's called PagerDuty. And if you're a technical person, you know what that is. And if you're a non-technical person, half of you know what that is. PagerDuty is what your highly talented developer team has to deal with over Christmas, over New Year's, over Thanksgiving, which is if the website goes down, if the app is broken, whatever happens to your technical stack during off hours is PagerDuty. The time when your tech team has to be on edge, that they may have to walk out of a movie, take their laptop out of their bag, connect over 4G, and try to solve whatever problem is happening. Literally, this is the life of developers, is being on duty like this, like they're doctors. And they literally have to carry their laptop around, carry an eVideo connection. And if they're not, if they don't have that, if they're going to be in an area that doesn't have connectivity, they can't be on PagerDuty. Anyway, it's a very intense thing. It creates a lot of back and forth, and it could cause people to leave a company. Good people will leave a company or not join a company if the PagerDuty schedules are not fair, balanced, and efficient. In other words, you have a high benchmark, and PagerDuty's made software to take all of the alerts from all of your servers and put them into one location and then manage who's in charge of which pieces of your stack and who should be alerted and who shouldn't be. Why is this important? Because you have dozens and dozens of reporting pieces of software. You have dozens or dozens, a dozen or dozens of developers and technical people. They can't all be woken up at 1 a.m. when there's a false positive or a fake alert that you don't need, but sometimes they do need to be woken up. You need to manage all this, and PagerDuty makes a software that does that. Atlassian, which makes HipChat, uses it. Pinterest uses it. New Relic uses Airbnb, Panasonic, Slack, Path. Everybody uses it. It's brutal to be on call, so you need to have a monitoring system and a system that makes it easy to do. And actually, Justin over at Chartbeat, which was one of my first angel investments, says this: PagerDuty gives Chartbeat one central place to send critical alerts. We now have a simple, easy process for on-call scheduling. You can sign up for a 14-day trial at pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt with your first alert. So go to pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt with your alert, pagerduty.com/twist. And you can thank at PagerDuty on your Twitter handle. It's great software. It's a great system. It's easy to use, and literally it'll make your team happier. And that's really what matters is, you can't have developers quitting your company or not joining because you don't have a really good solution for this really, it's kind of like a persnickety, problem. And it could cause problems in your company. So anyway, get PagerDuty. It's awesome. All right, let's get back to this amazing episode.
if you're product focused, you follow the product leader. You find who your Steve Jobs is in your organization. You follow them. If you're customer focused, you literally deliver what customers want, because that's literally what's driving you. You can always have to manage in the principles that you caused you to create in the first place. If you're itch focused, you follow the itch. So Slack will keep building Slack to be Slack in as many ways to do all the things that the team needs it to do, because that's what basically led them to the success they have. And lastly, if you're pattern focused, follow the pattern. So let's just talk about scope. So the first piece is important just because I'm not trying to tell you all that there's one way that you should all do it. It's really, really important that you all chase your own vision, but bear in mind, whatever genius got you to the products you presented today, that's the genius you need to follow. And it might be customer focused, or it might be passion focused, or pattern focused, but that's the way you do it. Let's talk about scope. So this is a scalpel. Everyone knows what a scalpel is. It's an easy thing. It's easy to adopt. It's easy to explain. Does one thing particularly well. And if you want a demo, I can show you. Basically, if you run it along human flesh, it cuts it open. It's quick to build. It's quick to test. Given two scalpels, I can tell you which one's better. The opposite of a scalpel is something more like this, right? A Swiss Army knife. Now, Swiss Army knife is hard to market, hard to explain, and hard to adopt. If you come along to a party in my house and I'm like, oh, I've got this lovely bottle of Brago, it's a fantastic Californian red, crack it open, and I pull out this. I'm like, here's your bottle opener. You're already thinking, wow, this guy is not so smart or not so smooth as we once thought he was. Similarly, if we get into a knife fight and I produce this, you're like on a die of laughter, right? If you said, hey, I have to cut down a tree in my front lawn, I go, oh yeah, cool, I'll bring my saw, and I bring this along, you're like, that's not very fucking useful. The The reason is that this is basically a collection of things barely useful, all put together. Now, it doesn't. In real world, people always make this point. There's always one Swiss Army knife lover in the crowd. The value of a Swiss Army knife in like the real world is it's a collection of marginally, rarely needed, tangentially useful tools. Your product is probably not that. Okay, your product, you're hoping people will use it every day and need it every day. Different thing. But when you're starting your product off, which a lot of you are doing, or in the early sort of embryonic stages, you want to be focused much more like a scalpel than a Swiss Army knife. So one of the reasons for this is a principle called Gall's Law of Systems. And Gall's Law states very simply that a complex system is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked, right? A complex system designed from scratch never works. So if you're trying to boil the ocean from the start, or if you're trying to have like 5 different ways to make revenue out of your product from early days, you're almost always going to fail. You have to start over with a working simple system and grow it from there. Until you have a working simple system, which looks like a scalpel, or looks like here's one way to buy tickets, or here's one way to to find events in your area, or any of those sort of things. You can't go and add on new revenue sources. You can't make it up in the density of your business. You start off simple and nail it once, and then expand, right? So the key point here is, even if you want to be a bloated piece of shit, you still have to start off successfully with one thing, right? So the conclusion of that is that your first release should be a solution to a real problem that exists today. It should be easy to build, test, and refine. It should be easy to explain to a business or a consumer if you're selling B2C. My personal bias is always going to be B2B, just it's the world I've worked in. And it should be easy to adopt for companies of all sizes or consumers of all sizes and scales. There is a difference between making a simple product and making a product simple, right? And that's not a typo. I actually mean that. There's a difference in making a simple product and making a product simple, right? To make a simple product, you decide where it starts and where it stops, and you keep that scope small, okay? Products only ever capture a subset of a workflow, and if you try to capture the entire thing in your first release, you're going to come back to me with a Swiss Army knife. So to have a very simple example, here's a problem. I have to pay my team. My definition of success, which is the only definition of success that matters for me, is that everyone on my team is paid. Now, how that happens is we have all of these things. I have to check my bank account, review my projects, bill my clients, check my timesheets, verify my rates, draft my pay slips, issue my transfers, and then tell all my team they're paid, right? That's the full flow I have to go through. As entrepreneurs, especially if you're customer focused, you're thinking, that's cool, Des. I want to take all that pain off you. I want to just do the whole thing start to finish. And that's really, really dangerous, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to start at the very starting point. You want to start at the first point where you can add some new value to my life, either by making things faster, easier, cheaper, available, mobile, but start where you can add new value, okay? If I already have a perfect solution, don't try to replace it with something else that does the exact same thing, because then you're trying to sell me something I don't need, and then all of a sudden you're losing credibility in my eyes straight away. And then when you identify the place where you want to start, work out how to transition from the previous step seamlessly. So, for example, if you all know TripIt, right? So TripIt, say we're going to plan your trips and we're going to put it all into a calendar form and make it easy and give you this mobile app and all that. TripIt transition from the previous step beautifully, because they know the last thing that happens before you need TripIt is you've booked a trip. So all you need to do is forward your receipts. Even better than forward your receipts, connect your email once and we'll just take them all out of there. But they've worked out that the last thing that happens before you need to calendar a trip is you need to book the trip. So once you've done that, TripIt takes over. Similarly, where do you stop? Well, if the next step is done through a market leader that you're not taking on, leave it be. So if you're doing something like, let's say, for example, the product we talked about earlier that was based around restaurants, if the next step would be, at this point, I would normally go and review the restaurant. Well, either you're going to go and take on all the restaurant review sites like TripAdvisor and Yelp and all that, or you're not. Just work with them, link them up, whatever. But don't go and try to, that's not your competitive edge, right? So if there's a market leader, if you're doing movies or opera or theater, you don't go and take on IMDb, right? That's just not the thing to do. That's not your strength. If the next step is completed in loads of different ways, leave it be. So an example of that is like, if the next step is, say, pay salaries, which it was on a product I once worked on, paying salaries is done 160 different ways in about 180 different countries. So you can either build 160 different ways to do it, or you can say, you know what, these people are already paying their salaries. I don't need to do this. You obviously have a solution, otherwise you wouldn't have any employees. I'll leave it be. I'll save that battle for another day. Lastly, if it's something you can't innovate on, so if the next step would be, well, normally they'd make a phone call here. Great. Don't go build VoIP. Let them make the phone call. That's fine. Okay. So to play this out for 1 second, going back to the workflow we had earlier, add clients, enter errors, generate reports, create invoices, send invoices, track payments, blah, 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 blah. It's really tempting for you guys to look and say, all right, we just need to build that whole flow and it's nailed. Excellent. But that's not one app. That's at least 3 apps. That's a time tracking app, an invoicing app, and an accounting app. You pick your app. You might say, right, well, we're going to do the time tracking thing. Okay, so that's what time tracking looks like. Well, following our earlier principle, the first step is add clients. How can we transition from the previous step? So where do these clients exist? Are they already in Basecamp? Are they in a project management tool? Are they in email? Get them out of there into our product. Make it easy. And if we know the next step is going to be something like send invoices, how can we make that transition easier? Should we integrate with Blink Sale or any of the classic invoice tools? Like, work out how this fits in a flow. I kind of call all of this like the Scopylocks principle, right? No scope too big because no one can adopt it. You're turned into a Swiss Army knife. No scope too small because then you'll be dismissed as being a feature but not a product. Find a scope that's just right. When you're building these things out, we always follow what Brandon Scherer from Adaptive Path calls the cupcake principle. Very simply, when you're building a product, let's say your product was a wedding cake, right? If you want to build a wedding cake, you have 2 different ways you could do it. You could spend a couple of weeks building this cake base, and at the end of that, you'll have a cake base, right? It's hard to tell if the cake base is good or bad or whatever because it's hard to assess it independent of being in a cake. Then you make your filling, and lastly, you add your icing. Then at the end of all this, you've blown all your budget, and you get to find out, turns out chocolate and carrot is a shitty flavor for a cake, right? Another way to build it would be, well, let's just build a little cupcake first. And the great thing about building this little cupcake is you get to find out, shit, the oven doesn't work. You better fix that. Oh my God, chocolate and carrot is horrendous. I better fix that. The point being that in a very, very small step, you've learned an awful lot. And you can gradually make it, as you find things that work, you scale it up, and then you arrive at a wedding cake. So that's just what I want to talk about, scope.
Yes, before I did this episode of This Week in Startups, I was literally in a conference room using GoToMeeting with a Harvard fellow. Yes, I'm dropping Harvard during the GoToMeeting advertisement. And it's not really an advertisement, it's a testimonial. I've been using GoToMeeting for years. I love the product because it's flawless. And I was literally being interviewed by these Harvard people about Inside.com. They wanted to get some details about what my thinking was about curation and the future of journalism and all this stuff. And instead of me calling them on my mobile phone, I had a perfect headset over a broadband connection with an Ethernet plug and a 1080p camera and a perfect laptop with a fresh install of OS 10. Like, I have literally a clean install, not just the one I'm logged in under, so that it goes perfectly, because meetings are important. And if I'm going to take the time to do a meeting, I want it to be flawless. GoToMeeting makes it flawless. The product is flawless. It works on Android, mobile, all these different platforms. But I can tell you, me being able to share my screen perfectly, have perfect video and audio simultaneously, that is the nuts. That's what it's about. That is the perfection of GoToMeeting. And if you use a free service, you will get what you pay for. The meeting will not start on time. Things will break. People's computers will crash. It won't work in certain browsers. GoToMeeting, this is all they do. They just make meetings perfect. I love the product. I've been using it for years. And the HD video conferencing is like, it makes it look like you have a satellite truck. And the audio quality is greatly surpasses any phone system you could use. It's just perfect VoIP. Go to GoToMeeting and click the try free button to start your 30-day trial. And meeting is believing. You've heard me say that a million times. And so, listen, we also do all our rehearsals for the Launch Festival through it. So we have a bunch of remote rehearsals that go on. And really state of the art for me is I'll have 2 huge TV screens like I have in my studio here. One of them will have the desktop and the actual demo. Another one will have the video screen. And we have 2 different computers logged in so we can have multiple views of the same video conference. You can really do sophisticated stuff with it like that. Anyway, thanks to my friends at GoToMeeting. Let's get back to this amazing program.
Next is feature creep. Am I okay for time, by the way? Yeah? Yeah, cool. So feature creep. What does feature creep look like? So it's kind of like the bane of our lives. We all talk about feature creep all the damn time. I've been fighting for a way to sort of say, it's easy to say a product's bloated, but no one ever, I'm just show me, what does bloat actually look like? Can we define what bloat is rather than making it just classic criticisms of old tools like Microsoft Word or say like Salesforce's web offering, SFDC, like people say, oh, it's big and it's bloated. And we're like, well, what is bloat? So I've been studying this for quite a while, and I have like a couple of ways that I think to look at, you can see bloat or not see bloat. One way is to take any of your products, whether it is, say, like the ticketing product, or say the restaurant product, or say the family product, and say, like, which of these features are people using, and how often are they using them? Two very simple questions. You can get this out of a database with a little bit of SQL. Plot every key feature you have along this metric. So here's a simple project management tool. All of the people, all of the time, are using things like post message, post reply, create a project, complete a task. That's what people are doing in your product, right? Over here, some people are always using time tracking, but not all. So we could say from this that time tracking has an adoption problem. We want to get it over here. Not everyone's using it. Similarly, everyone is very rarely doing things like, say, merging projects. So maybe that wasn't such a useful feature. Maybe it's just something people only need to use infrequently. But we could say that you could say if something else was down here, like send SMS, you could say it has an engagement problem. People aren't doing it enough. Okay. One way to think about this is this: the core of your product is here. You make an improvement here, everyone appreciates it, and it pays off big time. You've Dangerville over here, right? Small number of people heavily dependent on a small piece of your product. The reason I call that Dangerville is because it's the road to consulting wear, or it's the road to sort of stuff that is like, you're going to have a very messy product if loads of things are heavily dependent upon by very small groups of people, and you're putting it all together in one product. It means you're on your way towards being a Swiss Army knife. Small group of tangentially useful features, independently used, which don't benefit of being co-located. Conversely, like another way to answer this is, what does a well-rounded product look like? And this is quickly what I spoke about at launch scale, but this is often where we start. And I guarantee you when you guys launch, this is going to be exactly where you were. You have a small set of features, because 12 weeks wasn't long enough to build a big set of features, right? Thankfully. And if you ask what percentage of your customers are using these features, you'll find most people are using everything. Most people are, searching for restaurants, or most people are searching for tickets, or whatever. Most people are doing the things you want them to do. And you're all going to launch, and you're all going to, raise rounds and be successful, and you're going to be like, right, success is a really lousy teacher. You think you can do no wrong. So you're like, I'm the right guy to run this. I'm going to, basically, this is going to be $1 billion business all on me. So what you think you're doing is you're like, we're going to add all these features, and everyone's going to use all of them, because basically I've never put a foot wrong in product in my entire life. And so that's what you think you're doing. In practice, what you're actually doing is something a little bit messier. It's something more like this, right? You have a couple of hits, you're wrong as often as you're right. You're adding stuff because you've probably started to deviate a little bit from what your own itch or passion or product or pattern was. And you're now into uncertainty, where you've got customers asking for things, you've got possibly teammates asking for things, you've got possibly investors pushing you in certain areas, you've got competitors launching and doing similar things to you, and you're trying to deal with all of these inputs into the decision mechanism. But in fact, this is optimistic, because the more you have here, the value of this actually goes down, because your product's getting more complicated all the way too. So you're actually trending towards here. And as a side note, I don't know, I'm sure you've probably read or heard about like the Clay Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. But if you do one of these analysis and you come up with something like this, this means you have a reliable little product here, and you've added a bunch of junk to it, and someone else is going to say, hey, that little subset is actually the only useful bit. We're going to go and build that. We won't be encumbered by all of this technical debt, and we're going to nail these two things over here, and they're going to beat your ass in the market. I can think of numerous examples, but one simple one that Google thankfully reacted to was like Hangouts sitting inside Google+. Hangouts were cool. Google+, less cool. They extracted Hangouts, but like all I was thinking the entire time I was using Google+ was, I wish I could just get the Hangouts product. And there are plenty of examples. Every product that's basically, like Google Docs, take for example, has maybe 1/10 of the features of the most recent release of Microsoft Word. But its strength comes from one new axis, which is it's a web. It's not file-based. And again, theoretically a worse product, but like it nailed the bits that mattered. So when you're considering adding new features, which you all will be doing from the very moment the money hits your bank account and you start adding a team, and then I'll ask you, what do you want me to do? You're like, oh, I better go and start making up stuff. A good test to run every feature through, like make sure you're actually doing the right things, is it's a set of questions I ask whenever we're considering new features, which is like, does it fit the vision of what we're trying to create? Is the reward for using this feature greater than the effort we're asking our users to step through? Will it benefit everyone? Will it grow our business? Will it matter in 5 years? Is it a forward step? Will it generate new engagement? If it succeeds, can we support it? And I'll just go through a couple of examples of these, but in case, just bear in mind the slides will be available, so don't worry too much if you feel you can't keep up. Does it fit your vision? It's hard to explain this as the company scales, because you when it's just you and your co-founders, you're all on the same page. The page gets really, really hard to pass around when you grow to like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 people. Inevitably people join and they're like, hey, I really like this idea of like, of insert generic launch product here. But I want to do this as well. And you're like, oh, that's, I see what you're saying, but it's not quite exactly what I saw the product evolving. You will have these decisions, and they are like, it's not, no one signs up to join like your movie review site and says, oh, and I want to add a dentistry feature. Like, they're the obvious fucking, no way, we're not adding dentistry to our movie review site. That's not a decision. The decisions are when it's like, hey, I'd also like to make it for TV dramas as well as movies. And you're like, no, I hadn't really thought about this, but that's not a simple no or yes, right? It does pull us in a slightly different direction. And we saw examples of that during the Q&A earlier. So one thing that's true is if you've never said no because of your vision, you don't have a vision, right? If it's not guiding you at all, then it's just that's because it doesn't exist. Another question is, will this matter in 5 years? So put simply, like, it's easy to go around and build like Facebook apps or widgets or like, messaging tools inside messaging tools, or like to build like, say, a Snapchat integration or whatever. But like, it's important to ask, like, will these things stick around in 5 years? You can literally like piss your life away chasing the trends of what's popular in 2013 and 2014 and never actually make any real contribution, because you're literally chasing whatever things live and die day to day. Certainly, like, Facebook apps were big at a point. Bebo apps were very big at a point too. None of those things actually mattered, as it turns out. And there's numerous examples of things that you just must integrate with today. Put simply, like, focus on the things that don't change, which is a quote from Jeff Bezos, but it's a very, very valid quote. Real human desires, jobs, and real company tasks and needs do not change year to year. The point I always make for this is, like, here is one job existing for many, many generations. We have a person reading a thing called a book over here, made of paper. We have a phone, we have a Kindle, we have an iPod, and we have a laptop. And people use this example and say, oh, humans are just so antisocial these days because of all this technology. Like, as if this is in some way new, right? The job of being bored out of your fucking mind on a train has existed for quite a while. So another question to ask is, does it benefit all customers? So it's tempting to think, and you will fall for this, what I call it, the frequency bias. And like, even some of the discussions earlier were leading us that way, which is like, hey, I talked to somebody yesterday who thinks that this would be cool if we could do this for furniture companies too. Oh, really? I talked to a person also who was involved vaguely and tangentially in furniture. And you're like, all of a sudden we're building a furniture widget. Whereas, like, your brain just works that way. Your brain pattern matches and backfills and like retrofits ideas together based on recent things you've heard. The plural of anecdote is not evidence, right? So if you hear something 4 times, that should be a hypothesis, but never a fact. You don't let like 3 good examples be a shortcut to like, we therefore must build this. It could be just 3 people. When you have an active user base of thousands or tens of thousands, you have to bear in mind, if 4 people literally don't matter. It's just not a thing. You can find patterns in any subset of people. Put simply, like, don't let yourself be fooled by a handful of quick things that you remember recently. And that might not sound obvious now, but like might sound obvious now, but like in like a year's time, when like 3 people ask you for like tagging feature in the same day, it's going to feel like a must-have for no reason other than the fact that it was 3 times in the same day. Act not on the request of your customers, but act on their behalf. So a point I often make is like, customers will point to the moon, and if you're naive, you'll examine their fingers while they're doing it. And if you're really naive, you'll even go and ship a minimal viable finger, because you're not really looking at, like, when they say, like, I want to be able to, like, add my own businesses or merge two accounts, whatever. They're not like customers can only speak in solutions. They don't speak in hypothetical, abstract wants or needs, or even in their own success. They speak to you in the language that they think will take your tool for them and solve their problem. But that's not necessarily the right solution. That's their way of expressing the need. Another good question to ask is, like, does this improve, complement, or innovate upon an existing feature? So, is it getting better, or is it getting more modern, or will it make the feature be used more? Are all good questions. It's very, very easy to write a lot of code, and actually that does not achieve any new wealth for your business, and no new engagement, no new customers, no significant advancement, no new moat that makes you unapproachable. Related to that, like, sometimes a new feature actually is a failure because all it does is divides existing usage. So if Facebook, for example, had a way to, like, let you decide what type of group you're creating, they could, put in a group type dropdown, and let's say 10,000 groups are created in error, and in the new world, 10,000 groups are created in error, and there's literally no change in anything, right? Because they haven't actually created any new engagement. A simpler way I explain this is often with Diet Coke. Does everyone remember Diet Coke with lime? Still around. So Diet Coke with lime has broadly been not a good idea, right, for the Coke company, even though they sell a lot of Diet Coke with lime. So why is that? Well, if you're the Diet Coke with lime dude, here's your sales. You're like, we launch. Hey, it's been a success. We were selling 100,000 whatever's Coke deal in units. So you would consider that broadly to be good. In some other part of Atlanta, there's someone else pulling their hair out going, fucking Diet Coke sales are tanking. What's going on, right? And if you're the CEO of Coke, you're looking and going, no change to Diet Coke. And that'd be grand if that was all it was, but now you've got all this fucking lime, and you've got all these liming machines, and you've got all this, like, promotions and adverts you've run against this product, and the end result is nothing, right? It's really, really easy to release stuff, and because people are using it, you think it's a success, but you have to ask, what are they not doing in the product too? Like, has overall engagement increased, or am I just analyzing individual metrics? If a feature takes off, can you support it? So the classic thing to do would be, like, I saw a lot of great iOS apps here. Very, very easy to say, well, I don't actually know Android myself, but we're going to contract an Android development house. That's cool. And then you can add someone reports a bug. You're like, oh, shit. Can't fix that for you. Always bear in mind, like, you have to be able to support the things you want to do in this world. Can we design it in such a way so that the reward for using it is greater than the effort required? So here's a very simple way to think about things. You have, like, how rewarding is something and how much effort is it to do. So applying a filter in Instagram from a user's point of view is incredibly rewarding, and it takes that, right? It's a good deal. Up here, you've got things that are very unrewarding and take a lot of things, like configure your account. No one wants to do it, and it takes a lot of work, and they get very little joy out of it. Your standard stuff is up here. And down here, you've got gimmicks and novelties, like just little bits of kind of salt and sugar you'll put into your product that really, they take no user effort, but they also get you nothing in back. And, like, gamification hacks, like buttons, that sort of stuff is usually in that category unless you really nail it. A great example of this for me is, like, Google Plus, which I spoke a little bit about earlier. It's definitely a thing that people have different groups of social friends, and they exist in different social circles. That is true. However, the overhead of actually representing that in software is just not worth it. Because I've met some people here today. I'm hopefully going to meet some more of you after. And you're all new people. Now, by rights, I should connect you all on Google Plus and then start recategorizing you and creating new circles and all. Like, it's just not worth it. But at the same time, it's a good idea, right? Those two things are possible. This can be true, and also it can still not be worth my time to do it, right? And, like, you have to be okay with that. If you can't do it well, it's not a good feature. So be careful moving beyond the areas of your expertise. If you know and understand, like the restaurant business, it's tempting to therefore think that you know and understand the tuxedo business, but you probably don't, and there's probably all these variables. As you move beyond it, you have to hire into new expertise if you want to go beyond your own, or learn and skill up. So moving out of the reasons why you should or shouldn't, just a couple of points. None of these are ever a good reason to ship bad software. We've talked about this one forever. Microsoft talked about Vista for a long time. That wasn't a great idea. It's months late. Customer doesn't care. They don't know, right? Doesn't mean you should ship a bad piece of software. We've worked on it for quite a while. Again, lots of products have been worked on for quite a while. Doesn't mean they're inherently good or worth shipping. We can produce it quickly. I could rob a bank pretty quickly. Doesn't mean it's a good idea, right? Just because you can do something quickly, it doesn't mean it therefore should go on the roadmap. Literally makes no sense. It's the number one argument I hear. It makes absolutely no sense for stuff getting built. But like when you make all these decisions, always bear in mind, decisions are perishable. They're not final, right? You're never saying no because you literally don't have a crystal ball. You can't see the future. What you're saying is not now and probably not for the next while. That's all. And there's a big difference between that and a hard no. But the reason you're better off defaulting to no is because once you add something, it's really, really hard to take it back. So just a quick demonstration of this. Here's how customers will value a hypothetical feature. If you ask them, hey, would you like a feature where you can send your friends a gift card? Yeah, that sounds like pretty cool, all right? Okay, cool. Here's a feature where you can send your friends a gift card. I don't really care. All right, fine, we'll take it back. Right, like that's literally how software desire with customers works, right? So the danger is like if you add stuff, you generally tend to be too chicken shit to take it back because you actually don't want to deal with the support overhead. So instead, you quietly let it sit there rotting, right? It's dangerous, but like that's what actually happens. Also bear in mind, there's short-term and long-term implications for every product decision, right? So it's easy to ship something today that actually does get new engagement, but it can still, it could still destroy the values that your product is based on. So I'm pretty sure somewhere there's a team in LinkedIn celebrating every new feature they've made that helps you automatically connect to hundreds and thousands of your friends and endorse them all for fucking WordPress while you're doing it. But this cartoon is definitely accurate because it's rendered the value of your LinkedIn social network to be less than what it once was. It used to be that everyone who was connected on LinkedIn literally were only the people I've ever worked with. And that was a valuable group of people to have. But now it's expanded to be literally everyone. I'm sure people here are probably already thinking of adding me on LinkedIn. We haven't worked together. We're not professionals who have any sort of business together. You're watching me talk, I gave you some feedback, but that's not really the basis of a bond. So it becomes, what's funny is LinkedIn has actually opened up a market for it's like LinkedIn, but for people you've worked with, which is actually what they used to be, right? And I'm not saying that they're wrong because I'm sure that they're building a network. It's not as well defined. Facebook have the exact same problem. There's a real thing now. It's like Facebook, but for your friends, right? These things are actually happening because this is what, if you literally just chase numbers. And again, I'm sure that they're right, but it's very common that most products actually sow the seeds of their own displacement in a lot of ways like this. Doesn't mean it does not mean that they're not going to go on and be $100 billion companies forevermore. But it's worth bearing in mind. Make it a conscious decision when you do it. Don't do it blindly. Going back to the features for a second, if you're not culling your features, it leaves you as one of these products that people have to take the shit out of just so they know how to use it. This remote control example I really like. Everyone's remote control is full of all these buttons that no one knows what to do. When I first saw this, I laughed at it. Then I thought, actually, no, I'm going to do that. That makes sense. It's just a smart thing to do. It saves me a lot of cognitive load every time I pick it up. One point out of this is just on managing your roadmap. So when you see your roadmap, which is probably going to be on a whiteboard or Trello or something like that, there should be really four types of work in it. You're either improving a feature, and your measurement if you're improving a feature is, are customers more satisfied? If you're getting more people to use a feature, then you're asking, am I increasing the percentage of customers who use this feature? Or getting people to use it more? Am I getting more usages per day? Or am I adding a new feature? And if you're adding a new feature or supporting a new workflow or any of that sort of stuff, this should basically map to cash for you in some way, shape, or form. Cache in the consumer world might look more like stickiness or engagement or screen views or whatever, depending on how you monetize. But it's really it's too easy to add features that don't do any of these things. And you put it under some vague thing oh, we had to redesign that screen anyway. If you didn't achieve any of these things, you didn't achieve anything with that work, right? It might have felt good, but it didn't actually do anything. Connected to that, I guess, is one thing I'm at pains to tell people. Shipping means nothing. People celebrate shipping, but they shouldn't actually celebrate shipping. They should celebrate using, right? It's actually when people use the feature and the thing works. That's when it's actually worth celebrating. That's champagne time. So for the most part, a lot of your roadmap is about like getting more people using a feature or getting people using a feature more. Nothing else really matters. So to improve a feature, you have to improve it along the lines in which it's used, right? Not the customers or the personas that you have, and not the category it's in. And I'll give you one example of how we look at this in Intercom. In Intercom, when we launched, we built this map feature. It's just one of the small things Intercom can do. It shows you all your users around the world, right? And we thought this was a map, so we were like, hey, that's cool. And then we wondered why it was popular. And we saw, well, people roll this little map out when they want to impress people at a trade show, or people tweet the map when they want to show people, check out how many customers we have, or people use it when they're trying to impress investors. They're trying to say, look, we've got customers in all these countries. And if we think that this thing is a map, okay, well, what do maps have? Well, we'd go and build geographical accuracy, precise filtering, clustering of segments, drag to zoom for regions, accurate scales, accurate distances, etc. Every single one of those things would have been a flop. Because do you think it would improve any of these use cases? Not at all, right? This is not a map at all. This is actually a vanity piece. It's a show-off, right? It's a trophy. When we know what people are using it for, we build a more beautiful map. We build an animated map. We build a full screen map. We make it easy to hide all the sensitive data that you want to hide on a map. We make it easy to share the map. And what we find is a worse map does a better job. Because it's not a fucking map. This is the point. A lot of people think, oh, we have an analytics dashboard, so we have to build all these analytics things. It's like, you don't have an analytics dashboard. You have a tool that gets people promoted. Or you have a tool that people hand to their boss. And maybe a better way to improve it is to make it easier to print out, or to give them a PDF version, or to email them a PDF every morning. But that's like when you're thinking about what people are actually using the product for versus when you're thinking about what category it is. So what we did is we built all these things, and we made it easy to share an animated map. And we made it easy to tweet the animated map. And we tweeted it once. And then people caught on to it pretty quickly. And they tweeted it. And then more people caught on, and they tweeted it too. And this has just gone on. And there are literally like thousands, probably tens of thousands of these tweets out there now. Obviously, it was incredibly successful for us because along with giving people something to show off that was really, really successful, it also helped advertise Intercom a lot as well, right? But none of this would have came about unless we realized the job that people were actually doing with this screen. And it's really, really important to know that. Don't think you know it, find out. Because if we thought we knew it, we would have built fucking weather on this map, or time zones, or something that no one cared about, right? Never confuse the category you're in with the value you deliver, because customers only care about the value. A couple of quick examples on this. Weather websites obsess about being in the weather category, right? So they want to give you like meteorological precision about precipitation statistics and barometer metrics and all this sort of stuff that no one even understands. What people actually want to know is like, is it going to rain? Do I need an umbrella? What should I wear? Can I have a barbecue tomorrow? Like, these are real problems based around meteorology. But that's when you actually look at the job that people are doing. One conclusion from this is that before you launch, or before you actually have it out there, you're designing for the behavior that you expect. But once it's out there, you have to now design for the behavior that you get, right? As Stevie Wonder says, like, you have to work with what you have to work with. Peter Drucker has a great quote on this. He said, like, the customer rarely buys what the company thinks it's selling them. And that's a really nice way to think about it, right? Most of you aren't in the business you think you're in, or you're not in the business that you would define yourself to be in. And if you have to be categorized in the App Store or whatever, you're not actually in the business of like e-commerce or whatever. You're actually in the business of like discounts for shoppers, or saving people money, or any of that sort of stuff. Lastly, I'm just going to talk very quickly about Magic. And this actually section, more than most, because there's so many sort of mobile apps here, it definitely applies to you guys. So you're probably wondering why there's beans here. So in 1901, does anyone know what Heinz Beans did? Business. They put beans in it, they sold them. And in 1955, their core business was actually putting beans in a can and selling it. And in 2014, guys, you know what the core business is? Putting beans in that same can and they're selling it. Lots of things have changed along the way, shipping and all that sort of stuff. But like, for the most part, their core business is beans. The reason I say this is that, like, the core output of a beans company is beans. The core output of a technology company is innovation. and this is a point from Mark Andreessen, which is that there's a key difference. The difference being that you're not actually doing like a mobile messaging app, or you're not actually doing any, and like what you're doing is innovating on a way that this job gets done. And that means if the tectonic plates of technology itself change and everyone's using watches or everyone's using audio communications, you're innovating again on that job. You're not in the business of apps, and you're not in the business, you're not Heinz. So any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That's a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, and I really like it because it kind of gets at the core of what most great apps have been. It does feel magic the very first time an Uber shows up. It does feel magic the very first time your Instacart thing shows up and everything's right. It does, like, because you're literally doing this, and then something in the real world happens, and you're controlling the world with like a few buttons. The old magic, the magic that I grew up consulting on when we used to sell, is now basic expectations. There used to be a thing that you'd say, our tool is in the cloud. You can access your files from anywhere. We used to pitch that, like, imagine trying to say that now. Everybody, how else would it work? Floppy disks? Like, our stuff is easy to use. That's like a chef saying our food is edible, right? It doesn't make sense. No install required. Beautiful design. It's mobile. It's social. These are all just table stakes. If you're not doing this, you're not doing anything. Okay. There's new magic that's come along in the last while, and that's basically what I'm talking about here. 3 elements of the new magic, and I'm consistently looking out for new trends that follow this. One new piece of new magic is what David Sachs, who I think is speaking at Launch, he calls the Uberification of interaction. So he defines Uberification as being the slimming down of application interfaces into push-button experiences that do one thing. It's the next consumerization, and that's the same consumerization we talked about earlier, consumerization of software. So to give a real simple demonstration of this is what Uber looked like in the Web 2.0 era, right? It was like, what type of car, what location, what cross street, what phone number, what time to pick up, how do you want to contact, how do you want to pay? It was a web form, right? And that's what most of us kind of grew up designing, right? This is actually what Uber looks like. Do you want a car? Yes. That's it, right? This is what ordering a pizza looks like in the old world, okay? Let's go through your pizza configuration wizard, right? This is what pizza looks like in the new world. Push for pizza, right? This is push for pizza's interface. Do you know what you do if you want a pizza? Push. If you want 2 pizzas, right? If you don't want pizzas, you don't push, right? Simples, okay? That's how push for pizza works, right? Probably some of you are familiar with Yo, right? Yo is just you press a button that sends a single digit piece of communication when it just says Yo. Yo is hilarious because like, it's on one hand, it's absolutely ludicrous, makes no absolute sense, but like there's still something there because they have reduced a form of communication down to a single tap. Aaron Levy had a great joke about this. He was saying, Yo for the enterprise is an app that just says, hey, did you do that thing? And like that sounds ridiculous, but then I can think of the many people I know whose job it is just walking around saying that to people. And like Yo would actually help them. The other joke I saw about Yo that I liked was, this is like how Yo will expand. Like you've got Yo, sup, hi, good day, dinner, lunch. Anyway, all of this is about push button single tap experiences, right? And like these single taps and swipes can do lots for us in our life. Like they get you a date, they get you a car, they get you a movie, they get you a restaurant, they get you a hotel. They get you a job, they can get you a roommate, they can even get you a dog. This is basically your life, and you live it one tap at a time. And that's like that is the Uberification of the world we're in. And the design principle here that really matters to you guys is that your design's only complete when you've reduced the frequently recurring problems that people launch your app to do to single taps, single clicks. And that means using things like really intelligent defaults, being location aware, being like, knowing your users really well, configuring their favorite things. If you know what they like genuinely, it should be the case that if you're selling tickets to opera and you launch the app and it knows that you really like opera, that is the only interaction that it should take to have tickets to the opera. If it's anything, if you're not the guys who do that, your competitor will, and then you'll be sitting here saying, I should have listened to Des. So that's Uberification. Second piece is automated inputs. So the old world had us filling out data, and the source of the data was us. We had to write in every single text field. What books do you read? What music do you like? What age are you? All that sort of junk, right? We've done that so many times that all that data happens to already exist in a million places all over the internet, right? The new world does not ask users to enter data that already exists somewhere. You just connect the source of the data. Sign in through Facebook, sign in with Google, sign in with LinkedIn. If anyone asks you for a job title, I get annoyed because I'm just like, I could actually give you way more valuable information to your product than my job title if you just let me click one button. But because of it, you're going to get software engineer, and good luck with that. That's new magic. So how that plays out, like TripIt, for example, authorize Gmail once, all of your trips planned forevermore. Barometrics is authorize Stripe once, and we will give you revenue analytics forevermore. That literally takes one click. And you authorize a source, and you never, ever enter a field again. Josh likes to joke that there actually are no text fields in Barometrics, right? Pretty impressive thing to post, right? We follow this principle in Intercom. You connect Intercom to your product once, and forevermore, we will show you all of your users and what they're doing in your product. That's what Intercom is, in case you don't know. I chose not to really pitch it here. But yeah, you authorize the source, which is like your user database, and forevermore, we'll give you all this value. Anywhere you ask users for input in your product, anywhere, right? Ask yourself, does this data or content already exist somewhere else? Is there some way to bypass that? And I mean that for absolutely everything. Payment details, movie preferences, whatever. If it's out there somewhere, get it, or someone else will. And lastly is ambient insight. So this relates to a couple of the products we talked about earlier. Specifically, the misconception here is that it's okay that users should launch the product to go looking for things. That's not how the world works anymore. Things come to you. So I realized this because I had a friend growing up who lived next door to a library, and being like the young nerd I was very jealous because he had lived next door to a library and I didn't. And I realized over time when I called around to him progressively that he wasn't actually that smart. And I was like, that's really weird. How can you live next door to a library and not be smart? Turns out living next door to a library has no impact on your intelligence whatsoever, because all the books are on the shelves. They're not in your head, right? You have to still go into the library and get all this stuff, okay? The old magic had us logging into reports and launching apps and going and clicking 9 screens deep inside products to try and get something valuable or some piece of insight out of the product. That's the old world. Thinking, maybe I don't know what I'm doing tonight. I better go and see if there's anything cool to do. Or thinking, I wonder who was on my homepage yesterday. I better go and launch my analytics thing and select all and filter down to homepage and all that sort of shit, right? That's the old world. In the new world, all of this stuff comes to you and you don't do any work, right? We apply this principle in Intercom where we send you a mail every day with who signed up yesterday, what they've done in your product so far, how influential they are, all that sort of stuff. We send you that every day, so you don't have to worry about it. And you're now like tacitly or ambiently aware of what's going on in your product. You won't fail to notice it when people start slipping away or when new people sign up. Similarly, like a product called Mention, every time anyone talks about you anywhere, they send you a daily summary of everyone who's talked about you, whether you're a startup festival or whether you're a restaurant product or whatever. You'll get all this. Gage just sends you an email every day, like, here's what's going on in your homepage, or here's what's important. Your product is only ever a small part of someone's life or a small part of someone's job. So design it not as a destination that they have to go to and root through and go and find value out of, but design it as a system that expels value out into the world. So that, like, their phone beeps and it's like, here's something valuable you didn't know about the world. Here's a discount on this. Here's what you need to know about the top 3 people who signed up for your product, or whatever. That's how you think about that. So the product I was talking about earlier was Intercom. I'm a co-founder of that. If you liked this talk, blog.intercom.io has way better stuff from all the rest of the team who are way smarter than me. If you want the slides, just mail des-slides@intercom.io. My actual address, if you want it, is just des@intercom.io. But put in the -slides if you want the slides. Please don't mail me directly because there's a whole wish-wash of people who want slides and it's easier to get it filtered that way. And I'm Des Traynor on Twitter. Intercom is Intercom on Twitter. I hope this was in some way useful to you guys. Happy to take questions.